As we start off the first operating round in this era, I got a problem. At 5 trains, yeah, there's still 3 trains available. Okay, I'm safe. I just thought I'd screwed up, but no, this one works as expected. So I've got 2 trains over here. I make my run. It's a 32 run. I'm not going to pay it out. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first I get to pocket 40 bucks from the doinkers that I'm hitting. That means my 32, I've got 80 bucks in my pocket. That's not going to quite buy this shit. See, if I swallow right now, I'll have $400 in my pocket in my corporate treasury. This is a tough decision. If I had the 500 to get a permanent train, I would do it immediately. But what happens with 400? The question here becomes, do I want to keep this company or not? And it's got such good stock value and everything. On the other hand, I could pump the stock up a little bit more. Then it would have trouble continuing though. I'd be running just the 4 train, which runs 80, 120. It would be 20 a share out here, which would go forward 1 more space. I'd have 210 a share. I'd be able to dump that shit off because it would stop being terribly valuable after that. At least it wouldn't be increasing in value. Well, I think I do want to keep the company, so I'm going to take the swallow, and I'm going to take, what is that, 320 bucks. That's going to give me 4 of these blue bills. That means 1 more swallow, and I can buy off the 4 train, and I can buy myself a permanent train. Or I have this pile of cash that if it looks like it's going to take a while for these 6s to run out, I could actually just hold off on without swallowing. And with that 40, well, it's only going to be 20 bucks a turn. It'll take 5 operating rounds. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So it's going to mean another swallow to get to another bigger train. And the problem with that is, of course, this is also not a permanent train. But I think it's better than losing my company, or losing it. Even if I don't lose the company, it becoming an ineffective and then totally unvaluable company in the end. It would start making some money for a while, but eventually the trains would come out and they would cripple it. So I'm not gonna buy any dots, I don't think. I feel pretty comfortable. The problem I have though is that I'm not very good with the 6 run. This 4 run is just about perfect for me. And if I upgrade a doinker, hey, I'll make a little bit more money that way. The 6 run is not anywhere near as promising. I could come down here, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 maybe. 4, 5, 6. If this doesn't get dotted out, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that 6 train. Oh well. The IOW makes a swallow. Hell, I only am getting as much as he's getting out of it. Buying itself a 6 train, and that kills all the 3s. So now we got some people who are out of trains. Just 1. No, 2. Well, this is the new one. This guy's my own company has just lost a train. I don't know. Not sure why I've got that share. But the 6 trains mean we lost those. We're down to 2 trains per company, which makes some juggling impossible. So for example, well, we know this guy's not going to get the run he had before. We knew a 6 was going to come out, so that's not a big deal. This private comes out. Without anybody holding any of the privates, this becomes kind of iffy. I mean, 200 bucks for a 25 revenue. Let's take a look. I mean, you know, this sucker's making 21 revenue. This isn't going to increase. Neither of these are going to increase in value. The most you can do is sell it back for less if you don't like it anymore. Look at this, isn't going to be making that run. This is going to be in that range again until it gets a 2nd train. But it just doesn't seem terribly worthwhile to throw that much money into something until the stocks stop growing. If you can no longer increase your investments, if you can no longer increase the stock value on things, this becomes kind of more interesting. But I guess it also serves a purpose if somebody's holding one of these like an asshole. No, like an idiot, really. You can crush it by playing that. So you can take away, this one in particular with its $30 revenue might seem pretty potent, but that would be pretty dumb, I think, given that this thing's, available very soon. That $30 with no stock growth is going to not seem terribly valuable, I think. But I don't know. Maybe we've hit the high point in the likely runs setting at this point. Maybe nobody's going to have two big trains running. We'll see. That'll put us down to the green one. I understand the rules. Green's not insolvent yet, but they don't have a train, so they can't lay track. Did I screw that up? Early in the game, I think people laid track. Oh no, they can lay track, they can't upgrade track, and that's the problem. So I could lay this here, I guess. And I might as well put something in there. I think there's only one kind of track. Well, there's two kinds of track that could work there. I got this little loop, and that's probably the safer of the two. I could also just put this endpoint doinker. No harm in doing that as far as I can see. I don't see many people coming out here and laying a dot down there. Okay. Beyond that, though, I'm in trouble. My stock value goes down, and I get an insolvency marker. I can't use it this turn, but from now on, I can start borrowing trains and running them for, I believe it's 20 per big city. Looks like it's getting 30 per big city. Maybe I'm misremembering this. I think it may be 20 per big and 10 per little or something. I don't remember. There we go. It only happens at the end of the turn, so I didn't have that problem before, so I can't run a train this turn. I get to retain revenue. I can't upgrade track or build track that would incur any cost. I can't buy a token anymore. I could have bought one at this point, but there was nowhere I wanted to. What I'm going to get is $40 plus 20 per small or large station halt. Oh, that's pretty much actually, isn't it? 20 per. If I had a 6 train, that doesn't look like, that doesn't read the way that this works. IGE allowance only. Okay, so the way I read this is a 6 plus 3, a 4 plus 3 would get 40 plus 5 times 20. Okay, per small or large station or halt. Yeah, but I'm only allowed to use the big spots on the train. That's what it is. So this would end up as, if I had the 6, 120 plus 40, 160. So I'd be swallowing 160 a turn while this is available. It's going to take a while to come around, and the stock value is going to be just about nothing. Luckily, I'm down to only 2 shares of it. But then when it comes out, it looks really attractive to people, and it's going to make big runs that jump its stock back up. So it may not be that terrible a thing to fall behind like this. We'll see. It certainly doesn't look good, though. Especially the fact that I didn't need to have these shares. I could buy into it later when it's down. This guy went insolvent, too. I didn't see him because of, I don't know, field of view or something like that. But yeah, same problem. He's got a little more money, so he'll recover more quickly. But I got a lot of shares of that are going down. We'll see. Now we're getting over to the kind of interesting stuff that actually can run, though. Basically what happened was nobody was counting on one of the big boys buying this. They were counting on this guy buying it. That didn't matter much for him, but he could have done a swallow and made up and picked up the run and had enough money to buy the train, I think, right away. The funny things that happens, this guy chose to run his for profit because he made 16 a share. That bumped him up way up. He can swallow later. Now, 160 bucks, it wasn't going to get him to this 500. If it was, it would have worked fine. But he's actually quite a ways behind, and he might be looking at this thing is going to go insolvent at some point. It's banking some money for hitting halts, but mainly I'm even hitting this little doinker here because it's a 20-buck doinker, so that's pretty decent. So I'm hitting what, 4 cities? Yeah, well, no, I needed it for the 4 cities, so it was 6120. Yeah, I could have hit another doinker instead. 6120, 140 plus 20 puts me to 160. 140 would have moved me up too as well. I'm actually kind of looking at, I don't think I'm going to keep that company. I'm already spending effort on swallowing with this thing to try to keep it alive. I don't think keeping 2 big companies in perfect shape makes a great deal of sense. It's better to run, get some money, and then ditch it and buy shares in something else that's fixed by that point, right? Some of these, this guy is probably going to be fixed by then. The FYN might be fixed by then. Who knows? But they might be looking a lot healthier. And that extra share, because of the 2-share certificate, well, that goes away starting on the 8+4 train. And we might be there fairly soon. That's not quite when I lose my train. I lose it on the 7. But there's only one of those 7 trains and only one of the 8 trains. So we're really kind of, we're in that permanent train period, and we're going to start seeing things end, I think. 2 companies need trains, 3 companies need trains, and that will get us to the 5s. Whoa! Oops. I've been thinking the 5s are permanent, because 5s are permanent in 30. Oh, well. Some people are not happy because they thought they had a permanent train on their company. Well, we're going to see some more insolvencies. There's no question there. The right side of all that is there's kind of this wind down period in the game anyway, right? As the trains come out, well, we get the Southern Railway forming, and then we've got to see the companies kind of build up their trains. But the longer that takes, the worse it is for me. But if that can happen fairly quickly, it's not so terrible. In terms of, having to make do with lesser stock shares or something. In fact, to fill out my portfolio, somebody's going to probably pull this out there, because if we're going to be seeing those 5 trains insolvent, that's 2 more of those. We're going to certainly see the 4s have some struggling. We're going to see some serious problems here. As it stands right now, nobody's poised to buy a 7, but this guy is not too far away. But it just got further because, it was 500 bucks for the 6. Now it's 600 for the 7. It's getting pulled away further and further. This guy is also, he was counting on getting a 6. Now, hey, you want to swallow for that 7 another time? I don't know. Does he make enough money to do it? He's kind of made his decision. He's kind of got to go for it. So this is a somewhat different flavor. Anyway, we've pushed into the second operating round. I've flipped all the counters over so we have the prices. You can see some of the guys like this, some of the newer companies, they've jumped forward a couple of spaces. They're, these bigger trains are making enough money that right off the bat you start making up some of that ground in the stock market. CNN had enough money left to swallow after upgrading fully. You can see this is a pretty rich track now that it's running on, and get a 7+4. Now 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got more train than my track that I've been running on. Maybe if I upgrade things I can get more money. Right now I should be able to boost this up around 30. which you'll see will get me a couple of spaces and back into that kind of safe zone, if that's what I want to run there. There's an alternative. I got this piece of crap, which I'm holding 5 shares of, same as I'm holding 5 shares of this. It's got a swallow. I'm going to take a dump on it next turn anyway. But if it picks this sucker up, it can run the 7 train instead. And then the CNN, see, nobody has shares of this shit. But a lot of people have shares of, well, my main competitor has 30% of the CNN. This guy has 20%. So the question here is, what am I going for? Am I going for the best outcome overall for myself in terms of how much income do I have? Or am I kind of worried about this guy and I want to make sure to take him down along with me a little bit, which shifting that train would definitely do, because I have the opportunity to buy more shares of this. I don't have an opportunity to buy more of this. And if I leave a 7 train sitting on that running nicely, nobody's going to run away from it. It's going to look pretty sweet. On the other hand, running that straight up, I might be able to get pretty far. I'd be able to get about to here off the run I've got built right now, eventually, assuming, I want it to run the game hard in that direction. However, it's also possible that this guy might, recover some value that way from the IOW or whatever. So it's going to be a hard choice. Luckily, I have a little bit of time before I have to make it. I'm not the next company to run, but I'm the next after that. So I really kind of have to figure out which way I'm going. I don't have enough money for this dot. I only got $50 on board. So I'm not going to be able to do that kind of nastiness. If not that there's anywhere open that I could dot. So let's go on. After running through the IWNJ over here, which made a nice run at 20, boosting by 2 spaces and looking kind of rich. I'm a little worried that this thing may just not cut it, and that, I've got more shares of this than him. Better overall otherwise. I'm best off going with the insolvency. The other thing is a little point of pride, But then there's also, each space I lose with this thing versus gain is worth more than what's lost or gained with this poor sucker. So I don't think I'm going to trade that train in. I think I'm going to leave that in the insolvent pile, and I'm going to try to run this one and see if I can get him, maybe with some track improvements or something, I can get him to the 340 space. Maybe not. I don't really care. I just want to be holding a pile of shares of the best thing out there on the board. That tends to always be worth a lot. So the idea of dumping this to get this guy working, this would make such a jump though, wouldn't it? It's this purple coming out of here. I could run through here. It could be 1, 2, 3, and I can't go through here though, which kind of doesn't really do me much good. I could make it up to there. Conceivably, I could link things up so that I get down somewhere else that's of value. But I don't know. And this isn't that much better, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to have a great run out of that either. Oh, this is just so damn hard to decide. Because this thing can go 1, 2. Might be able to jump through here and here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could avoid one of these, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I'm purple. I'm not gray. So I'm not going to be able to run through that good terrain. Yeah. I just don't know if Purple has a 7 train ready for it here. It would be, what could I do with the track? This was always the problem. I could start here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going through one yet. 5, 6, 7 up there. And maybe break down here. Because the point is, I'd be able to make so much money off of... So if I'm doing that, 1, 2, 3, heading this way, this is not the track I want. I want the opposite track. Is this? No. It's this. Gotta leave the town in place. So if I'm going that way, I'm just thinking that I can shoot my stock value up with everyone else's. Sorry, this company with everyone else's. So yeah, I gotta keep some money for building and stuff like that. If I'm dumping this, the insolvent doesn't go on that yet, then I'm going to pay as little as I can to the CNN. I think overall it does me the best because this is my chief worry. It also opens the game up more to these guys, perhaps. I don't know, not to this poor sucker. After some more runs, including this kind of crappy IOW here, I'm looking at, and this thing actually ran pretty well. It's crappy because of the track it's on, or the track lay, but it's running, I think, down to here. It was able to pull in actually the best run yet at 26, but we may see better. And went up 3 spaces because of it, becoming a more valuable company. But now, I've got my first insolvent company, which is the green. I'm not allowed to lay, I'm not allowed to upgrade track. I'm not allowed to lay tokens. I'm not allowed to do any track lays that would cost money. Well, I'm pretty much hemmed in. The board's pretty much built there. So I just count, and basically I'm running an 8 train. As long as I can hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places, I get $160, which I don't think I've transferred yet. So let's give myself 200 company credit here. Now the question, of course, is, what is my intention in the long run with any of these? In particular, I'm curious about this company, which might be very interested in this 6+3 train. I'm not going to be able to buy the 8 train with any of my companies. That's in any time in the near future, and the FYN is going to be constantly losing money while this happens. It could buy this, and then it would have a nice 6+3 train, which would run 1, 2, 3, 4, and then where, 5, 6 up there. Conceivably, I could maybe upgrade the M and be able to hold up that or buy a dot there. And that wouldn't be a bad run. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that gets expensive though if I'm running through all that crap. So it looks like I'm not really set up for the 6 train on that. The gray can probably run a permanent train better. I'm happier with the gray. I hold a lot of it. I'm not really thrilled with the IOW's holding, but here's the thing. Am I going to be out of a train by the time the gray company runs next time? And the answer is probably not, which might mean I'm going to take this little pocket full of money and buy a 5 train off of them. That's going to hurt their stock value. It's going to hurt Red's stock value because they're going to be back a train. But first of all, there's somebody else who holds 40% of the IOW as well. Where's the other 10%? Oh, it's up here. Nobody's killed it. Until somebody buys this, nobody can buy IOW, the last IOW share. So that's somewhat troublesome, but I think I need to get a permanent train somewhere. And this thing actually, that everybody's dumped out, well, at least I'll make some money off of it on the third run. And as we push into the last operating round, you can see how volatile the stock prices are in this game, and I really like that. One of the problems I have with the normal, say, 1830 style stock track is they either pay out or you don't. It moves you one space in either direction. 1870 is a little richer with the two-space movement, but I really like the multipliers. That comes from 29 and was a clever idea. I think it can only be obviously really easily implemented on a semi-linear track like this. This essentially is a linear track. And I don't see any harm in getting rid of that big 2D track in exchange for what you're getting out of the richness of this, the value of making runs versus swallowing, for example, or making good runs versus making crap runs. I really like that combination. So you see things like Orange, which has jumped ahead of some of the people who kind of swallowed, who were several spaces ahead before, because it was able to pay out a big 23 a share, which even now will move at 2 spaces. It moved at 3 from down where it was. Did Orange want a dot here? So this is the big question, is which company do I end up with? So this Orange guy, he's sold out and I'm holding 50%, whereas this guy I'm holding 60% of. The real only question, though, is, will this be gone? I'm going to hold off on my dot, because I would like to know, am I holding this company or is it this one? This one goes first. If it's out of a train, it can buy this and maybe buy the dot as well. If it's not out of the train, well, then it's not going to be buying dots, probably. Who knows? But I'll have another opportunity over it. Will anybody else sleaze in here, though, is a different question. And that could really hurt, because my track run, I got confused over Ventnor in one of these, runs, let's see, with a 6 train, comes out of Ventnor 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the one I'm skipping, 5, 6. And that's all. I don't see that getting any better, but it could really get worse if somebody dotted this. Yeah, if it gets to there, it can go to here. I also caught myself with a mistake where I had a non-B piece of track on this space. It didn't matter too much. It may have made somebody an extra buck a share. We'll live with that, right? Operating round, the CNN picks up its little bonus insolvency card. Great, it's not. The IWNJ, they buy the train off the IOW. The question with the IOW, of course, is, do we want to buy a train off the FYN? Or, and that means this goes back, this goes back. Since this is the third, is this just time to bail the IOW, throw it out to the wolves, as it were, and then start buying up maybe FYNs, because they may last a while. It may be a bit of time before an 8 train comes up. I'm worried, though. I see some hundreds here. So I don't think that extra train's worth anything. I think I want to leave it and see if I can get a run off of it. That's the best I can kind of do. Just as a thought there, though. And that actually puts it on the IOW. We'll see if it can lay any track. CNN built this piece of track. Why? Sometimes I get yelled at for building track when I don't really need it. I'm thinking it might be useful to the S&C, though. To have more links going around, more connections, more possible ways of breaking through. And a sort of a change in the tenor of the game. the purple line here. First of all, they upgraded this because that gave them an extra thing. But they're hitting real doinks instead of the halts in order to up their income. And they pumped themselves up to 26, as high as anybody's going, and are now actually the top stock price. But they're doomed for insolvency too. I see no way of saving them unless the 8 comes out in a very particular location, basically. But while I happen to be holding both companies, and after this goes and before this goes, actually, it may not matter at all. The 6 is permanent, but the thing is, I'm entering the next stock round after this. It would have had to have happened. I'm not sure that I want to hold these shares knowing that there's doom waiting for that train. For the same reason, I'm not sure I want to hold these shares, you know. Those companies have been used for what they've been used for. The fact that the 5s are not permanent is a reason to bail out of those companies. And as we push into the stock round here, we can see the stock market got a real shaking up with a number of the weaker companies with trains right now able to produce good money. I think the best of the performers was green here, which jumped 4 spaces. That's as far as you can go. They essentially got 4 times the per share value in terms of the overall payout, I guess. No, you see, it doesn't make sense. It's not 4 times the share value. I don't know. How does this work out? Why does this work at 23? Because the total payout is 4 times the share value, or something like that. It's not just the payout per share is 4 times. And we got the payouts. They're all pretty meaty, but all pretty well clustered. Everybody's pretty close to each other. You can run through things. We are beginning to see a little bit of clutter, or a little bit of congestion happening on the track because people are dotting heavily now. Obviously not the guys who are insolvent, and they're getting kind of closed out of important stuff because of it. But that's life, right? Now things get chaotic. We're over here, he's got priority. That sucks for this guy. It's one reason maybe he didn't want to trash the CNN, because that stock value is going to be nothing by the time it gets around to him. He may want to hold those crappy shares, although they're never going to buy up the train. Yellow is very close. Nobody knows this because nobody's got shares in it, but they know he's got a pile. He's 1 run away from being able to buy this 8 train. So then we see the 5s disappear. And I think everybody's pretty worried about that and is looking at dumping those companies. They made their money off of them for whatever value they have. So we're going to see a lot of shares going in here, which of course makes this interesting, as well as things that are already, fairly clearly solvent, like this. This is going to hold up. It's more valuable than that. This thing, that's kind of iffy, but what's left? I'm sorry, not this. This is worthwhile. This thing, somebody buys that, somebody will buy that. Boy, priority can be important, I guess. Bang, it all fell right in here, and you can see the prices. Oops. 1, 2, 3 of these. The prices just slammed down on these. I hope I got this right. This went down 2. Would have been from here. Yeah. Okay. Serious degrading of the value of a lot of these companies. And it's just a matter of, 1 run forward that's good, and then 2 runs back. I might at best break even. And with some of these, this one that's insolvent, this one might have been worth holding on to. But the insolvent stuff, geez, no. It's just not going to make money. And the IOW is insolvent as well. There's just no reason to hold that shit. I've seen a game where priority was so important in such a weird sort of way. Often it's, you know, means that you get a company or something, but not in terms of, oh, everything's got to go. Most games have a restriction on what can be sold and everything. All the CNN, all the IOW, except for this one share that's in the initial offering at 74 when this shit's selling for 56 on the market. Those both have no director now. They count as in receivership as well as being insolvent. This one is still insolvent, but people saw it as valuable because he held on to it. And in fact, he kind of is cursing himself for getting rid of the BHIRs, because in the end, people bought those up and bought up the fins. He even bought up a bunch of fins. The reason being, there's a little teeny bit of profit to be made. These guys are going to jump ahead 2 spaces. They're going to fall back those 2 spaces. Whatever they make on their first run is going to make them money. So there's a little bit of money to be made off of, and why they're going to jump 2 is because the runs are high enough. This one also is likely to be making 2 spaces. We're not sure because of the dots, and I don't pre-calculate a lot of stuff. Okay, well, I think we're pretty much in the final stage of the game, as it were, because when the yellow comes, it's going to be buying this sucker, and that's going to put it to the last kind of train is the 9+5. Once somebody gets the money for that, and things are going to go into insolvency and have to just run to try to get the money for it, then we enter the stage where the Southern starts sweeping up companies and nationalization and all that, and that is when the game starts ending. I think, given the size of this bank and what I've seen of the game so far, it would be very unlikely for the game to end with a bank breaking. I also think, unless people just let somebody get a tremendous powerhouse company, it would be pretty damn hard for the game to end with the 340 stock value. That might be a little more possible, but I don't know. You'd really have to, engineer a double train company at the end of the game, I think, to get that cranking there. This guy might have had a shot at it had he stayed with the 7+4, but I don't know how much of an advantage there would be to that. As it stands, he's sitting on the richest, best company, not by much, but with a powerful train. There are going to be better trains out there, but those trains are going to be on the worst companies in the game. Well, green and purple, the other purple, this purple. Oh no, this is not the best company. This guy's under here. Well, I don't know, maybe not so great, because there's this guy. He's got pretty good, the payouts are about the same, right? All right. Well, enough babbling. Let's see what happens. Interesting position here. There was a double move between 2 companies of 1 player. That can often be very powerful with exchanging trains, but it's not going to be in this case, I don't think. I think this game restricts your exchange. One thing I've been noticing, though, and why I came up on this video, this is a single dot. I had the wrong track there. I had one with one of these halts in it. I've caught myself doing that a couple of times where the wrong track, it's just too easy for me to get confused about the type of track I'm putting down. This game has too complex a track for probably my tastes. It's also, like 1889, which I did recently, maybe too congested a board. I like, some nice broad movements of track going across the board. A couple of big main lines that are controlled maybe by a city or 2. This becomes very complex to figure out. It's like, the area around New York City or whatever in 1830, but it's through the whole board. It gets that way, It increases kind of the pain factor a little bit of the track complexity. Yeah. I tend to like games where the emphasis is more on stock than on building, complicated track lines, though. So take that with a grain of salt. All right, let's see what I can do with this sucker now that I don't have as much. See, I thought this is a boinker. I didn't want a boinker there, but you can't get anything else. I can upgrade it to It's not a boinker, it's a halt. I can upgrade it to a boinker. It's technical terminology for the little towns as opposed to the halts. I don't have a word for halts yet. They actually are more like boinker doinkers than the other ones. None of them hurt though in this, so they're not as painful. In 1830, if you run through one of these boinker doinkers, you have to use one of your main train points on it. Here, you can ignore them, or you can use your bonus points on them. And at the end of the first operating round, these are our values now. These guys were all insolvent, but this one came out of insolvency. He still has a pile of money too, actually. So he's in kind of a neat position. Big train, enough money to drop that dot and maybe blast some terrain out of the way. People are getting less and less corporate money because you can see we're upgrading from halts to boinker doinkers. These two, though, are stuck in kind of a permanent insolvency. Nobody owns a share of them, and they're just heading down towards the bankruptcy level. We lost two more companies, though, are going into insolvency. Those are, because people hold shares of them, hold the presidency, or the directorship, those are going to be problematic if the 9 train comes out. Now, it's probably not going to come out until they're able to buy it, or these guys, well, until these guys are able to buy it. So there is actually quite a while going. These guys make 160 a turn. They each have, I don't know, a couple $100 on them, or credits on them. So it's going to run, you know, several operating rounds before we get to the point where things crash out. It may be possible that people make enough money to deplete the bank during that period. I don't know. Because there's a lot of cash that's not in play because of all these certificates that have been thrown out. However, the money that companies make normally in a game makes up for that. So it's a weird situation. You know, this is a very different game in terms of flow, in terms of a lot of things. But we're going to start seeing this one cranking, jumping up in stock value. We're going to see, this is interesting, this might break the bank, is the sale of these certificates. We'll see whether or not that happens. It might be advantageous to be buying these instead of those. But yeah, as soon as the first 9 falls, then we worry about, does anybody have, are there any presidencies in players' hands without trains? Because if that's not the case, then we go to the nationalization and the endgame procedure. And that will resolve itself fairly quickly, I think. Okay, as we enter the 3rd operating round, we see the yellow player has actually come screaming out of his insolvency with his big train. Advanced 4 spaces. He also dotted here in the center. He has a pile of cash. More than he needs, really. He's looking to try to break out this way. I think that could run me track that does this, which would be a little richer. Right now, I'm hitting some doinkers as my main cities instead of, and I'm not filling all my +4 because of that. So, and as it is, we're only making 30 a share. A few more pluses to that and we'd become quite an impressive company out there. Meanwhile, these poor things just chugging along. Got the new insolvency here. Man, that one, of course, too. And see, the 6 trains are permanent, so we're not going to see any new insolvencies unless it's a matter of fixing one of the old ones. So that shouldn't be a problem. And you know what? I forgot to pay him for the 2nd round. I paid him in the 1st round. Now that I have a private company in play again, I had better make the money for it because that's an important part of his revenue. Hey, you know, it's as good as as many of the certificates are. It's in the same general range. It's not producing any stock value, but it's better than nothing. All right, well, at the end of this round, Our big money maker, actually, yellow ended up topping out just as well as the green did, although yellow's got a much, much bigger train. They got a little bit more trouble in terms of navigating the terrain. They're running from back here, and they actually hit all 12 stops for money. I don't remember if they're hitting all 9 of theirs for money. But they've got a richer run with this center line. Without the center line, with the ability to run up here. Yellow's center line is hitting a lot of crap in here that's not terribly valuable. So that's kind of depressing their values. Likewise, well, not likewise, but in addition, we got all our insolvent companies ran. And we're in an interesting position now. We're entering a stock round. Whoever's got priority gets first purchase. There's no ability like there is in 1830 to just scoop up a whole bunch of garbage in this game. But that garbage is beginning to look interesting. The stuff down here, it's gonna, I can look at the money. We're getting, what, 220 around now because of these guys. And, you know, the simplified insolvent rules are probably fine for 95% of the cases. I have not run into a case where a player can't hit, because you can include halts, the amount of run that their actual main train has to hit. They don't get the plus part. And then they get 40 bucks on top of that. So they get quite a bit of money. But these guys are, what, 600 and something. And they only need 800 for that train, which means after one more failed run, they're going to make it. Which means they'll go back a space, and then they'll go zooming forward. And these shares are actually probably worth more in terms of what they're going to make than anything else on the board. In terms of whether they're going to equal or exceed other things overall, you know, in terms of proportion, they're going to make the most money. But in terms of whether they're going to exceed the per share return on in total, because you're still limited by shares, aren't you? Nope, there's no certificate limit. Great. And that just happened this round. So yeah, from now on you can buy whatever you like. There's no price drops from selling stocks anymore. Not that there's any reason to sell stocks particularly, except for crap that you don't want to hold anymore, like the FYN. That may be garbage. But yeah, for the most part, you can buy whatever the hell you like. And the question then becomes, in terms of absolute return, which one is better? Because people are going to be scooping those suckers up quite a bit. And then, of course, then there's the final question. Is this worth 74 bucks when it's down at 40? It probably is. It's going to hit down to 31. And then it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to break 74 in addition to whatever money it makes. So, yep. Every certificate out there is worth owning. There's no certificate limit, so everybody can invest their money. And it's basically going to fall pretty evenly because everybody's got piles of money. We'll come back when that's all done. Of course, it all sold out with, as sort of a little twist in terms of the exact opposite of what we started with, the IOW. Not over here. The CNN presidency over here and the IOW up there. Just how it turned out. This guy had to buy the more expensive IOW share. Still worth money, though. No question there. And these shares are all going to be good. You know, the only question is the FYNs. Do I want to dump my shares of that? Didn't think about that. Priority may be actually important if the FYNs come up. So I want to think carefully about this. So what's the value of the FYN? How much money does it have? I am the only person who knows. No, other people can ask. Okay. So we have 230 bucks. One round. 2 rounds. It's going to be dead for 3 rounds. So Yeah, everybody's going to dump their FYN. I had been mentioning a little while ago about worrying about the bank a little bit. The bank doesn't matter anymore. The game can't end due to the bank running out of money. The game can only end through two means now. One, if somebody hits the end of the game marker, which maybe. With runs in the 30s, these folk can crack over there. It only takes a 32 to push you over the limit. 33 if you're down here. Ooh, that's an interesting difference. Because you could end up stuck if you're on the bottom. Weird. Okay. But the other side of it is that, and it's kind of funny that, it goes either you jump 2 spaces or 1 space on the row that you're on, or none. You can't jump a single space by moving up ever. Kind of an interesting little attribute of the chart. The other thing that can end it is, well, when one of these goes, we start losing companies, and that's gonna happen pretty soon, it looks like. Okay, a little earlier in the video, I think I said we don't have to worry about the bank anymore. We do, actually, but right now it's gonna stop because I'm up to that insolvent company that's gonna buy the first 9 plus 5. It's once the Southern comes into play that you don't have to worry. And in fact, nobody can lay track anymore. There's a whole series of rules that go into play here at this moment, which I should really go into. Unfortunately, I have this company in my way. Okay. When each company runs its train, it only counts the first number as the number of total stations to visit, to a maximum of 9 instead of 14. You are still, I believe, allowed to hit Boinker Doinkers, the little towns, but you're also allowed to skip them, so you can charge how you like. This is where you actually have to use the revenue chart. I've been using it because it's a helpful little memory device. Companies in receivership pay nothing to their shareholders, and their share price drops. You don't have to try to count their revenue anymore. Companies can buy additional trains if they can afford to, but they're not allowed to retain revenue, so that's not going to help much. That's once all companies have a train each, all player companies, and we've got unfortunately someone sat on one of those, and that's gonna slow that stage. So after the Southern is formed, okay, so you can buy or sell trains, you can pay dividends and retain revenue, but you can't lay dots, you can't lay track anymore once the 9 plus 5 goes. I'm trying to look where it no longer matters that the bank goes bankrupt. The layout of these rules is very bad for me. There's not enough white space. It's too wide across. I tend to just read in a column, so I can only see about half the rules at any time. Not because of the camera, just because of my brain. It doesn't handle full, wide pages. I never liked magazines either, or full books. I like paperbacks. No more company bases, no track can be upgraded. Somewhere it tells me, maybe in the game end section. Also fairly sparse. Okay. So there it just says that shit. Yeah, I can't do this. There's too much paper on the table. So when the first train, companies can only from this stock longer, halts no longer count. No biggie there. Okay, so the bank doesn't go infinite yet. So actually, no, it's not until this sucker picks up a train that the bank's going to go infinite. There is a chance this sucker could end before then. I thought we were going to be slipping right into the nationalization period. I didn't realize that insolvent company there is going to run. It's going to go at least another run. I hope it doesn't go two, or else he's just screwed holding shares of it. Why did people hold this thing? They got rid of the, yeah, this was a dumb hold. They all got rid of the fin and they all held this piece of crap. I mean, not too great a problem, except this guy's losing money in comparison to everyone because he's holding that crap. It sucks about once the Southern actually forms, is that when? Jeez, I can't remember when you have two rules in one little section. But once it's actually, once the nationalization begins, is when companies, when the trains drop down to just one number trains, with the right to avoid hitting the little boinkers. But I've spent a lot of the game so far developing the boinkers for bigger runs. We're going to see the runs drop significantly at this point, which, is all an interesting situation, actually. But it's going to be hard for stock values to increase, so we may not be seeing anyone getting anywhere near that 340. And we're not going to see anybody hit it, I don't think. But anyway, just a lot of interesting changes. I find this section of the game very difficult to grasp, just because it's just a series of cookbook rules, and they're kind of embedded together. Hey, whatever. Part of why I'm playing it is to get a feel for that. All right. As we run through, everybody's routes are pretty much fixed because they can't build Tracklay tokens or anything like that. I'm making sure the values are correct, but so far they've been. We got these two I have to totally recalculate. But unfortunately, this poor sucker, he's still insolvent at the end of his run. He's $100 short of that train, and this really sucks because not only is everybody losing money, they would have made money if they had been aware that he was in bad shape. But this guy holding on to it, and nobody, maybe somebody asked the money or whatever, and everybody kind of came to the agreement that, yeah, it's fine, and it wasn't. I've seen that happen in games, so it's not like it's impossible that this kind of thing could happen, that people could just miss something so big to the situation. But what's really horrible about it is you may not see the nationalization stage of the game, which I think is really cool, but I'm very worried that this bank is going to run out before you get to see it. And if you do see it, the game went too long, right? These shares should have been gone. We should already be in that nationalization stage. Nobody should have been holding those suckers because all the companies that rightly should have trains do. Anyway, onward. And looking at the CNN, this is hellish. Okay. I've got a whole hell of a lot of train, a 9+5 train. But the board's gotten a lot harder to maneuver through. There's dots all over. And remember, I can skip through a dot, so it's not going to be easy to calculate this. Most of the other companies, I have kind of an idea of what their dots have aligned and what their tracks aligned for. I know what they built, so I can kind of discount all other options. But these guys didn't build any of this track for their dots, and it's really hard to see because they've got an endpoint here that they pretty much want to probably go to, although, well, they must go to that, right? Yeah. So they got to go from here. So then I come down to here. There's no question I want to make it through that. But then there is a question of what I do from there. Obviously, I can't come flying down this way or anything like that. But I could actually zip through here. I could pick up another dot here by turning. And then the question is, I guess because I'm going to try to ignore this area. I don't think I can make the money here. I guess the best option then becomes, is it going up to the pier or is it going down here? Not that I can, I can't fill track. Okay, so I won't be hitting that space. And the blue run coming down this way was more profitable. That got a big 38 run, pretty impressive. Best run, but how important is the company? As Clearclaw pointed out to me, those starting companies tend not to do well, I think because they automatically are going to enter into a long insolvency period. I think that's the guarantee there. And then they end up split up. Here, yeah, it made a 38 run. That is not going to be its last 38 run because this guy has one more turn to come out of insolvency. Well, it will be its last 38 run because the bank is probably going to crack, which is a pity. I wish I had gotten to the other cool feature in the game, which was companies dropping off. You know, they stay on the board, but they're not running anymore, and they're not producing income, and they're not increasing stock value. And that just struck me as a really cool mechanism to say, look, you know, things like the CNN would become very valuable because they're going to hold out to the end of the game because they're guaranteed the big train. They actually got a really nice dot situation where they only have to go through this one and can get a lot of rich territory down here. The red company, the IOW, got a lot more cut off by not having this dot, by being, well, they're both kind of backed up into their place. He had the option of cutting through this and down here, or cutting through this and picking these up. And I don't remember which one I took. I think I took to here. I think this ended up just a little bit less valuable because this is 60, 70, 80, 100, 110, 160. And this run down here is 20, 80, 100, 120, 180. But all the same, I got a lot of train I wasn't using there at 32. That's, you know, that's common with the diesels, especially in 1830. And they're the only train, you know, usually you can find a 6-train route for most companies, but a decent diesel route is pretty hard to find usually. But anyway, I think the bank's dead, which is really a shame because we'd like to see that operation underway. I feel that there's a bit of a problem with the rules here. If someone wanted the game to continue longer, and maybe they do, we'll see, they could choose to run for less. It isn't until the 9+5, it isn't until the nationalization happens that a player is no longer allowed to run a train for less than its maximum amount. And at that point you probably wouldn't want to do so, except as some kind of weird spoiler type thing. Oh yeah, well, I'm not running my train, fuck you, man. That actually is a danger in general. But here, I could see someone with a desire to win on their own saying, okay, well, I'm running for 10, you know, $1 a share. Just to get additional runs in. Why would you want to do that? Well, because you're going to get more additional runs if you're a top-ranked company. So, for example, this orange guy here could well have said, I'm not running for full value. And thus, perhaps, run the game out longer. I think if they had agreed to that with Gray, they could have taken a hit themselves, allowed an extra run to the guy who's in the lead here, sitting on, you know, this company, and allowed it to get ahead a little bit in exchange for more runs against, I don't know what, you know, against these things which don't really matter. In this case, I don't think it makes much difference, but I could see a player engineering and deciding, you know what, I am going to run this, I'm going to run this for less money in order to try to extend into that final era. Now the bank is at pocket change, one more company to run. the yellow one's going to break it. Because if we had gotten down to here, he would be buying this, changing the phase into that southern, and now the bank's infinite. Talk about damn close to cutting it there. But yeah, that yellow train, that thing makes 34, and I just do not see, I again don't see the value in avoiding paying out to try to extend the game for him. Again, unfortunate that I'm not going to be able to show that. Oops. The whole mechanism, this final game mechanism, is a weird thing. Whether or not it triggers, it's kind of like the big train at the end of most XX games. The rest of it, well, all the earlier trains could break. All the earlier situations could break the bank, but in this particular case, because of the separation of money into two piles, this allows you to have that same feeling that you have where, oh, if this guy buys his train, and now he could, I pulled all his money out, he's not out of money, but then the game will continue just a little bit longer. But it came a little too late. I've started recording the cash. There's no way there was 340 bucks in there. And here we are, unfortunately, at the end. You can see the huge stock movement on these guys. Had the game gone longer, these things would still have been cranking their stock value. So then it becomes kind of a question of, are they going to outrace, especially the blue? Is it going to be able to outrace any of these and make those drop before it does? Not a big deal, though, because both IOW and CNN are so spread out. Everybody has some of them. That's why they become unimportant railways. When something's that split up, it's making everybody about the same money. But it's a lot of money that it's making. All right, all that's left to do is to spreadsheet this out and then come back with the wrap-up. Okay, before I get to the final scores, I want to go over something. It was pointed out to me, and I think this is incorrect, that one of my initial bases that I built over here for blue could not have been built because you need a train to be able to reach it or something. Now, I'm looking at the rules for this, and I do not see that. It has to be reached from an existing base by following track, but not past tokened out stations. And I see nothing about requiring a train to be able to build a base. Maybe it's hidden somewhere else, but I don't believe so. This is really where bases are handled. Again, maybe it's on some online errata or something, but I do not see it in the rules as written in the book that I have. Maybe first edition had different rules with that. I'm not sure. But I apparently did play legally according to the rule book I have, which it would not have shocked me if I was wrong. Okay, so on to the points, and it's no big surprise. Huge lead in cash. Stock value, I was a little surprised with how well his stock value did. He wasn't holding any losers particularly. But, cash and stock value, for the most part, people were sitting on wads of cash at the end of the game with no stocks worth buying. And in fact, with stocks that weren't worth holding because of the BHINRs. And it totals out, he's a good $1,000 ahead of his next competitor. I doubt that is possible to be overcome by the endgame thing. But you know what? I want to show you guys that mechanism. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the next set of operating rounds, and actually the stock round as well, because I believe there is still a stock round where these FYN shares could be bought up. They're not going to lose money, so they seem like a good idea. I'll look at how that actually operates when I present that. But yeah, what did we see? Well, this guy got off. We had two people in the lead early in the game. They're the two people who are in the best shape. This guy took a hit at one point, and the number one player up there did not really ever suffer at all. This guy took a hit when his yellow went into insolvency for a little while. But basically, I'm not saying, the number one player played perfectly, not by any means. There's a hell of a lot to this game that I can see, and probably a lot more that I can't see, that, is still needing, that I still need to explore and play around with. Unlike something like 18AL, where I just feel like, I can take my 1830 experience and apply it. This is a very, very different sort of beast. And 1829 felt like it was all obvious when I played it. And I kind of expected that of the flat stock track, although, it was pointed out, and I've been kind of saying, the flat stock track doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is what you do with it. As long as, you allow stock to move back multiple spaces when it's sold, it's quite interesting, and it's more efficient towards dealing with this multiplier price movement type thing. You could do it with a two-dimensional stock track. I really don't see much point to the 2D stock tracks. They give some gradation, and that's it. Different values, but they can kind of be a pain in the ass because sometimes something has to go in an order that it doesn't look like it should be going, just because of the tinkering with that kind of fine tuning. I don't think that's necessary at all. I think this is very elegant. Anyway, I am going to run through the rest of what the game would have been if the bank survived. I'm not going to try to reverse these holdings. I can't do that. I might have wanted to do that at the time, but this gives a kind of neat opportunity where we can look at what the final standings were before that final run, or before those final phases in the what do we want to call it, the nationalization period, and then look at what the difference is after, how much it shakes things up. Honestly, given that the S&C is in his hands, I don't think it's going to hurt him much, because that's at the top of the track. But it's not a matter, it's not a matter of the top of the track, it's these. But that guy's near the top of the payout options as well. So the only thing that's going to run longer, perhaps, is the CNN here. But it'll be fun to watch the mechanism in play, so I kind of want to do that. All right, I'll probably end up just putting all the money away and spreadsheeting everything from this point on, because there's nothing, well, that's not quite right. I can't do that because there may be a stock round in play. Okay. I'll upload this, and then we'll get to a bonus post-play, like, playing. More fun.